Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a whole stack of sources and pull out the key insights so you get the essence fast. Today, we're tackling a giant, Steve Jobs. I mean, think about it. College dropout, built illegal phone-freaking boxes, went to India seeking enlightenment.
And then comes back and completely flips technology, animation, music, communication on their heads. It's quite a story.
Exactly. So you've given us a fantastic set of materials, articles, notes, research. Our mission today is to unpack the life and legacy of Steve and Paul Jobs, co-founder of Apple, Nextd, Pixar. The list goes on.
Yeah, we want to get into the key moments, those surprising influences, the iconic products, obviously. We'll try to connect how his unique blend of passion, perfectionism, and that perspective really shaped the digital world you navigate every day.
Should be some aha moments, I think. Okay, let's start at the beginning. To really get Jobs, you have to understand his formative years. Pretty unexpected roots for a tech visionary.
Absolutely. He was born Stephen Paul Jobs, San Francisco, February 1955. Adopted very soon after.
And the story behind the adoption itself is revealing. His biological parents, Joanne Shabel and Abdulfada Jandali, who was a Syrian Muslim PhD student, well, Shabel's father really objected to the relationship because of Jandali's faith.
Right, and that became a major factor in the adoption. But there's more. Joanne initially insisted the adoptive parents had to be college graduates.
Which Paul and Clara Jobs, his eventual parents, were not.
Exactly, so Joanne refused to sign the papers at first. She only relented when Paul and Clara promised they actually signed a pledge to pay for Steve's college education.
Wow. So that promise hung over his childhood, in a way, even though he later dropped out.
It certainly hints at some complex early dynamics, maybe a sense of expectation or even obligation.
His bond with Paul and Clara was incredibly strong. He called them his 1,000% parents. Hated the term adoptive parents.
Yeah, he apparently got quite angry about it. Saw his biological parents as, I think the quote is, a sperm and egg bank. Just genetics. His loyalty was entirely with the family who raised him.
He lived in Mountain View, then Los Altos Christ Drive.
Yeah.
That garage will become legendary, of course. Declared a historic site now.
And his father, Paul, seems to have been a huge influence. Built him a workbench, taught him craftsmanship. Jobs said his dad knew how to build anything.
You can see the seeds of that obsession with design and build quality right there, can't you?
Definitely. That hands-on experience, learning how things fit together, the importance of doing it right, that stayed with him.
But school was a different story. He really struggled in the traditional system, pranks, resisting authority.
Got suspended. Described as a socially awkward loner in middle school, he actually gave his parents an ultimatum to change schools or he wouldn't go. Seems he was being bullied quite a bit.
That resistance to conformity, that refusal to just fit in. You see that thread throughout his life, don't you?
Absolutely. It's that disruptive streak emerging early. So he ends up at Homestead High, right in the heart of what's becoming Silicon Valley. And there he meets Steve Wozniak.
And Bill Fernandez, who'd be Apple's first real employee. Key connections.
Very key. And this is also where he dives deep into the counterculture. Long hair, listening to avant-garde jazz, Bob Dylan, and experimenting with LSD.
Which he famously called one of the 2 or 3 most important things he'd ever done. He saw it as mind-expanding.
He did. And it connects to this dual interest he had, electronics on one hand, but also literature and the humanities. He said he saw himself at the intersection of humanities and sciences.
That's such a perfect description of the Apple philosophy, isn't it? Technology infused with artistry and human understanding.
Precisely. And that mix led to something pretty wild, the Blue Box venture with Wozniak around 1971.
Right, building and selling these illegal devices to make free long-distance phone calls.
It sounds like a prank, but Jobs saw it differently later. He said there wouldn't have been an Apple without the blue boxes. It taught them they could actually take on huge companies, these giant monolithic systems, and, well, beat them.
An early taste of disruption and maybe bending the rules.
You could say that. It showed nerve, technical skill, and a certain entrepreneurial flair, even if it was technically illegal.
Okay, so fast forward a bit. 1972, he enrolls at Reed College in Oregon. Very expensive liberal arts school.
Which his parents struggled to afford, honoring that earlier promise.
But he drops out after just 1 semester. Didn't see the value, didn't want to waste their money on what he called a meaningless education.
And this is classic Jobs. He didn't just leave. He hung around auditing classes that interested him. Famously, calligraphy taught by Robert Palladino.
And he directly credited that calligraphy class in his Stanford speech years later for the Mac having multiple typefaces and proportionally spaced fonts.
Yeah, if I had never dropped in on that single calligraphy course, The Mac would have never had multiple typefaces. It shows his ability to connect seemingly unrelated dots. Aesthetics mattered, even then.
Then came the spiritual quest phase. 1974, he travels to India with a friend, Daniel Kotke.
Right? Seeking enlightenment, visiting gurus, exploring ashrams. He shaved his head, wore traditional Indian clothing. It was a deep dive into Eastern mysticism.
And he continued experimenting with psychedelics during this period too.
Yeah.
Still searching, still exploring consciousness.
He also got heavily into Zen Buddhism, practiced meditation, went on retreats with the Zen master, Kubun-Chino Otagawa. He even considered becoming a monk in Japan.
That Zen influenced the simplicity, the focus, the intuition you see reflected so clearly in Apple's leader product design, don't you?
Undeniably, it wasn't just a phase, it became a core part of his worldview and aesthetic sensibility.
So he comes back to California, this sort of Zen-influenced counterculture, technically curious young man, and lands a job at Atari in 1974.
As a technician, Nolan Bushnell, Atari's founder, called him difficult but valuable. That seems like a recurring theme.
Yes. And Atari is where we get that infamous breakout story with Wozniak.
Ah, yes. Jobs needed Wozniak to design the circuit board for the game, aiming for minimal chips. He told Woz they got paid $750 and they'd split it, so Woz got $375.
But Atari actually paid $5,000.
Exactly. Wozniak didn't find out the truth for 10 years. It's a complicated story, shows Jobs' drive, maybe his ruthlessness. But Wozniak, interestingly, said later he probably would have just given Jobs money anyway if he'd asked.
That relationship is just fascinating. So much creativity, but also these tensions. Around the same time, they're attending the Homebrew Computer Club meetings.
Which was a crucial melting pot for early PC enthusiasts. Nerds sharing ideas, showing off their creations. A real catalyst.
And that leads directly to founding Apple. April 1st, 1976. Jobs, Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. Though Wayne didn't stick around long.
Wayne designed the first logo and wrote the partnership agreement, but got cold feet and sold his 10% share back for, what, $800? A decision he probably regretted later.
Just a bit. And the name Apple came from Jobs' time working at an apple orchard commune, apparently. A link back to that counterculture vibe.
And the funding was pure startup hustle. Woz sold his prized HP calculator. Jobs sold his VW van.
To build the Apple One, mostly was his design, but Jobs had the vision to sell it as a fully assembled circuit board, not just a kit for hobbyists.
That was key. Paul Terrell from the Byte Shop ordered 50 units. That got them started. It was innovative because it could hook up to a TV and a keyboard much more accessible.
They built them in the Christ Drive garage. Neighbors apparently thought Jobs was this odd individual, barefoot hippie-like.
Daniel Kotke, who worked there, said Jobs was just constantly on the phone, hustling, trying to get investors, get parts, relentless.
Then comes the Apple II in 1977. That was the breakout product, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Again, largely was his engineering brilliance, but Jobs pushed hard on the design of the plastic case, making it look like a consumer appliance, not just a piece of lab equipment. Rod Holt's switching power supply was also crucial.
And the argument over expansion slots. Jobs wanted 2, Woz wanted 8.
Yeah, classic Jobs minimalism versus Wozniak's engineering desire for flexibility. They compromised on 8, which turned out to be vital for the Apple II's success and third-party ecosystem. It became one of the first truly successful mass-produced personal computers.
While all this is happening, his personal life gets complicated again. His daughter, Lisa Brennan, is born in 1978.
And initially, he denied paternity, very publicly. Claimed, I think, that statistically 28% of the male population could be the father. It was pretty harsh.
But a DNA test proved he was the father. And eventually, he did acknowledge her. The Apple Lisa computer, released later.
He eventually admitted to his biographer, Walter Isaacson, obviously it was named for my daughter. He did build a relationship with Lisa over time, and she eventually took the name Brennan Jobs. But it was a difficult start.
Yeah, another layer to his complex personality. Okay, so Apple's growing. They developed the Lisa computer, inspired by that famous visit to Xerox PR-Ars, where they saw the graphical user interface.
Right, the GUI, the mouse. Jobs immediately saw it as the future, but the Lisa, launched in '83, was just too expensive. Technically innovative, but a commercial flop.
Which sets the stage for the Macintosh. Launched in 1984, he'd taken over the project.
And the launch was pure Jobsian theater. The 1984 Super Bowl ad, directed by Ridley Scott, iconic, positioning Apple as the rebel against the IBM Big Brother.
The ad only aired once nationally, but created massive buzz. And his introduction of the Mac itself, legendary. Pulling it out of a bag, the synthesized voice saying hello.
pandemonium, apparently. But despite the initial excitement, the first Mac was underpowered, lacked software, and sales eventually slowed down.
And this is where the friction with CEO John Scully really ignites.
Big time. Scully, who Jobs had famously recruited from Pepsi with the line, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world?"
Ironic, given what happened next.
Very. They clashed over strategy. Scully backed the profitable Apple II line. Jobs was all in on the Macintosh, a closed system. The board sided with Scully.
Scully reorganized, stripping Jobs of operational duties with the Mac team. Jobs tried to orchestrate a coup to oust Scully, but it leaked.
And that was pretty much it. In September 1985, Steve Jobs resigned from the company he co-founded. He didn't go quietly, though, took 5 key Apple employees with him.
To start NXT, this wasn't retirement, it was Act Two.
Definitely. He founded NXT Inc. with $7 million of his own money, later getting a big investment from Ross Perot.
The NXT computer, the Cube, launched in '88. Gorgeous machine, technologically way ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely. Object-oriented programming with Next Step, the Mach kernel, built-in Ethernet. It was brilliant. But again, the price tag, nearly $10,000.
Yeah, $9,999. That's like $24,000 today. Way too expensive for the education market it was aimed at.
So commercially, the hardware wasn't a success. They only sold about 50,000 machines. But the technology developed at NXT. That's the crucial part.
Because Next Step, the operating system, was incredibly robust and advanced.
And it became the foundation for what would eventually become macOS and iOS. And here's a fun fact. Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, the first web browser and server, on a NXT computer in 1990.
Wow. So NXT technology literally birthed the web as we know it.
Pretty much. By 1993, NXT shifted focus entirely to software, selling NXT Step and tools like WebObjects. The hardware dream was over, but the software legacy was just beginning.
And while NXT was unfolding, he had another iron in the fire. Pixar.
Right. In 1986, he bought the graphics group from Lucasfilm's computer division for $10 million. Half for the tech rights, half for capital. He saw potential in computer animation.
A potential that exploded with Toy Story in 1995.
Yeah.
First full-length computer-animated film. Huge hit. Jobs listed as executive producer.
Pixar just went from strength to strength after that. Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Wall-E, Up, hit after hit, critically acclaimed, commercially massive.
Which led to Disney buying Pixar in 2006 for a staggering $7.4 billion in stock.
Making Jobs Disney's largest single shareholder, about 7%, and putting him on Disney's board. Quite the journey from being ousted at Apple.
Bob Iger, Disney's CEO, said Jobs rarely caused trouble on the board, which is interesting.
Maybe he'd mellowed. Or maybe he respected Iger. Edwin Catmull from Pixar had a technique. If Jobs shot down an idea, Catmull would just wait a week, bring it up again, sometimes for months, until Jobs agreed or just let him do it. Persistence paid off.
Patience was key when dealing with Jobs, it seems. Okay, this sets the stage perfectly for his return to Apple. The wilderness years weren't wasted.
Far from it, he'd built a cutting-edge software company and funded a revolutionary animation studio. Meanwhile, Apple in the mid-90s was, well, floundering.
Bleeding money, losing market share, confused product line. They desperately needed a new operating system strategy.
After talks with other companies failed, Apple decided to buy NXT in late 1996 for $400 million, mainly for the NXT Step OS.
But the crucial part of the deal was that it brought Steve Jobs back into the fold. First as an advisor, then interim CEO, CEO, as he called it, by September 97.
And he moved fast, ruthlessly streamlined the product lines, killed projects like the Newton PDA, CyberDog, OpenDoc. Focus was everything.
He brought back that clarity of vision, and he started working very closely with a British designer at Apple named Jony Ive.
A partnership that would define Apple's next era. Jobs provided the vision, I've translated it into iconic designs, and Next Step technology became the bedrock for Mac OS X.
The Think Different ad campaign launched. It wasn't just marketing, it was a declaration of intent. Apple was back, and it was going to be different.
And then came the products. First up, the iMac in 1998.
That Bondi blue, translucent, all-in-one machine, it looked like nothing else.
Totally. Jobs bragged, the back of our computer looks better than the front of anyone else's. It ditched the floppy drive, pushed USB. It was bold. It saved Apple, basically.
Then the iPod in 2001, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Revolutionary. That little 1.8-inch hard drive, the click wheel interface. It wasn't the first MP3 player, but it was the first one people loved. Made Apple a huge player in music.
Followed by the iTunes software and the iTunes Store. Legal music downloads, simple pricing, changed the music industry forever.
And then, 2007, the iPhone.
Probably his most impactful product. That multi-touch screen, no physical keyboard, real web browsing. It just changed everything about mobile computing. Time Magazine's Invention of the Year.
Followed by the App Store, the iPad in 2010. Just an incredible run of category-defining products.
And his keynote presentations, the Steve Notes, became legendary events themselves. That reality distortion field at work.
He was a master showman, knew how to build excitement, tell a story around the product. He lived by real artistship and that Wayne Gretzky quote, "Skate to where the puck is going to be."
Always anticipating.
Yeah.
And his personal uniform became iconic too, the black mock turtleneck, jeans, sneakers.
Reportedly, Issey Miyake made him hundreds of those turtlenecks. It was about convenience, reducing daily decisions, but also building a recognizable personal brand.
He certainly enjoyed sticking it to rivals too, like that email about Michael Dell when Apple's market cap passed Dell's.
Oh yeah, classic Jobs. A bit of payback for Dell, saying years earlier he'd shut Apple down.
What about philanthropy? That seems more complicated.
It is. He wasn't a public philanthropist in the vein of Gates or Buffett. He shut down Apple's corporate giving when he returned, though it was later reinstated. Didn't sign the giving pledge.
Some say he believed his contribution was creating great products.
That was likely part of it. Perfectionism maybe played a role too, wanting to control where the money went. Bono did mention Apple gave tens of millions to AIDS relief under Jobs, so maybe more happened privately. It remains a bit of a mystery.
Let's move to the final years. His health battles became public, starting around 2003.
Yes, diagnosed with a pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor, a rare but more treatable form of pancreatic cancer.
Huh.
But crucially, he initially resisted conventional medical treatment.
For 9 months, right. Tried alternative therapies, diet, acupuncture, herbs, even a psychic.
A decision he later told his biographer he regretted. It's perhaps the most tragic example of his belief in his own intuition overriding expert advice.
He eventually had surgery, the Whipple procedure, in July 2004. Seemed successful initially. Tim Cook stepped in to run Apple during his recovery.
But the cancer eventually returned and metastasized. He needed a liver transplant in 2009. Again, Cook took over as acting CEO.
His gaunt appearance at public events fueled constant speculation. Bloomberg even accidentally published his obituary once.
He famously quipped, paraphrasing Mark Twain, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated," but it was clear he was seriously ill. He took a final medical leave in January 2011.
Though he remained involved strategically. Introduced the iPad 2, oversaw iCloud planning.
Then, August 24, 2011, he resigned as CEO, nominating Tim Cook as his successor. Became chairman of the board.
He worked right up until the day before he died.
Incredible dedication. He passed away at home on October 5, 2011 from complications related to the tumor and respiratory arrest. He was only 56.
His sister Mona Simpson's eulogy revealed his last words were apparently, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow," looking at his family.
A poignant end. There was a private funeral, memorials at Apple and Stanford. He's buried in an unmarked grave.
His legacy, though, it's immense,
Yeah.
especially in design. That Zen influence is so clear.
Absolutely. Simplicity, elegance, intuition. Wozniak always said Jobs wasn't an engineer or coder in the traditional sense.
His genius was in the vision, the look and feel, the user experience. Integrating technology and design seamlessly, he holds hundreds of patents, mostly design patents.
He was deeply involved in product details right to the end. Apparently, even in the hospital, he was sketching device ideas and complaining about the design of the medical equipment.
That drive never left him. Posthumous honors like the Presidential Medal of Freedom just confirm his impact.
Joanna Hoffman, one of his early Mac team members, was known as one of the few who could actually stand up to him and win arguments. That took some doing.
What a life. From that adopted kid in Silicon Valley, exploring counterculture and mysticism, to being fired from Apple, building NextT and Pixar, then returning to save Apple and launch products that literally changed the world.
It's an almost unbelievable trajectory. The blue box pranks, the clashes, the triumphs. It all points to this incredibly complex, driven individual who believed deeply in the power of marrying technology with the humanities.
His focus on look and feel, that obsession with how things work and how they make you feel, that's his enduring lesson, isn't it?
I think so. It's about vision, persistence, and that relentless pursuit of perfection, even when it made him difficult.
So here's something for you, our listeners, to think about. Jobs famously quoted Gretzky, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been." He excelled at connecting disparate ideas, calligraphy, Zen, engineering, What seemingly unrelated fields or ideas could you bring together in your life or work? Where's your puck going to be, and how can you anticipate that future?
That's a great question to ponder. How can you blend different disciplines to innovate? We'll leave you with that for your own deep dive.